Today we're getting into the latest Tesla news, including more Model Y Juniper sightings in California, Tesla's future battery technology, Tesla's self-driving competitors giving up, and more, so let's get into it. First up today, you guessed it, more sightings of the Model Y Juniper. This one was spotted over in California, and it has the rear light bar shining through the cover. This is one of the first times we've actually seen this rear light bar clearly shown in one of these leaks, aside from when we got a full image of that rear with that light bar. That seemed to confirm that that was coming to the Model Y, but now we're seeing it out in the wild with some light shining through the middle there, which is something the current Model Y does not have the capability of doing. So this pretty much solidifies that that feature is coming to the Model Y and that this is a new prototype that Tesla is testing out in California. One thing that Tesla really likes to do is intermingle all of their design. So we can see a great comparison here to the Cybercab. The Cybercab has a rear light bar, and then has the rear license plate dropped below the hatch, and that seems all but guaranteed to be coming to the Model Y as well at this point. When we saw the Model S get a refresh, we saw a lot of that design come over to the Model 3, and now it looks like we're seeing some of the Cybercab and Cybertruck design come into the Model Y into the future. Personally, I do like how the rear of the Cybercab looks, so I think it would be a great look for the Model Y that would especially change it up from what we've seen for over 4 years at this point. This does lead to a lot of speculation on timeline though, since this was spotted in California. There is the definite possibility that this new Model Y refresh comes from China first. We've seen local media reporting this, and that production is set to begin in January in China. That would be full production, not prototype production, so this new car would be released shortly after that for the Chinese market. This may indicate a repeat of what Tesla did with the Model 3. That refresh came first out of that factory and then months later out of the Fremont factory in California. So we were left for months without a Model 3 refresh announced in the United States. However, this time the Model Y is coming out of 4 different factories and it's a much more popular car. If Tesla were to do this same technique, they would probably create the Osborne effect to a larger degree, where a ton of people in many different markets are waiting for the new version of the Model Y to be released, and thus Tesla has trouble selling the current one they are making. I think that that is already happening this year, and this car is on track to be the most popular in the United States of any car. It's already the most popular and best-selling car in the entire world, so it is a bit of a different situation than the Model 3. Ramping up one factory for that car and then 3 others is a bit different than 1 and 1. Anything could happen here, and this could still be their technique, but maybe they won't have as much of a delay between China and then the rest of the world getting this car. With that said, there have been a couple recent sightings in California specifically, so that could be good news for this car being simultaneously released across the world, although Giga Shanghai still remains Tesla's most productive factory. For right now, that's all the latest for the Model Y Juniper, but it's great to see another sighting of it out in the wild. As for the design that Model Y seems to be taking inspiration from, that's the Cybercab. And the Cybercab has been on display kind of all over the place at this point, at Tesla stores, the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles, and more. But the big question on everyone's mind is, how does it actually get there? There's no steering wheel or pedals on this car, and FSD version 13 is great, but it's not that precise to park it in some very tight area. It's not designed to park for displays. So how is it actually being driven in videos like this? Well, according to sources at the Peterson Museum, there's an Xbox-like game controller that plugs into the car. That can control the steering and pedal input, since that isn't actually there in the vehicle. I figured something like this had to be the case, because there's no other way they could get it this accurately displayed for places like the Peterson Museum, which require it to go up ramps and other areas. Also, this functionality falls right in line with Tesla's plans to have a fleet of Robotaxi operators as backup when they need to remote in for safety. Likely when their fleet first launches of Robotaxis, there will be third-party operators who can remote in the case of an emergency or some situation where the Robotaxi does get stuck. That's likely to happen, especially at its initial launch, so this is a necessary requirement. And we see that from companies like Waymo right now. They have the capability to remote into these cars if necessary. So it seems that Tesla will be able to do that, and they'll probably be sitting there with something like a game controller or some other optimized version of it. But today the Robotaxi is getting to all of these display areas simply with an Xbox-like gaming controller. If you do want to see the Cybercab on display at the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles, it's reportedly going to be there through the end of the year, although I wouldn't be surprised if they do extend that a little bit. They've done that a lot in the past with vehicles like the Cybertruck. Next up today, the future of battery technology at this point always seems to be coming from China, and as such, Tesla has to compete. One company we always see in the future of battery technology is CATL, and this time they're doing something a bit different. CATL just announced their new battery swap ecosystem with 100 partners called Choco Swap. NIO actually has already done this with 3-minute battery swaps available on many of their cars, but CATL has 2 different versions of this with different battery chemistries. First is the number 20 pack. That includes an LFP pack with 42 kilowatt hours and a range up to 400 kilometers on their standards. The NMC version of this, which is a different chemistry, offers 52 kilowatt hours and a range of up to 500 kilometers. The other type of pack is the number 25. That is LFP, has 56 kilowatt hours and up to 500 kilometers of range, and then the NMC version is 70 kilowatt hours with a range of up to 600 kilometers. Essentially, the standardization here aims to reduce development costs of swappable battery vehicles, which previously has been prohibitively expensive. This partnership aims to build about 30,000 swap stations, and by 2025 they're going to have at least 1,000 of them. Here they say it's about a 100-second swap, so this ends up with a time that is shorter than EV charging today and shorter than most gas fill-ups as well. These stations will also have 14 to 30 packs per station, so in the future, when there's 30,000 of them, that'll be about 33.6 million kilowatt hours of electricity sitting there, which can help the grid when it needs it. Quote, there are 9 advantages of Choco Swap, making batteries chargeable, swappable, upgradable, leasable, purchasable, buybackable, visible, manageable, and optimizable. If you ignore any of the problems that you may associate with battery swapping, this sounds incredible. Essentially, you always have another battery available to you, and a 100-second swap sounds incredible. You get all of the advantages of a battery, and then you can swap at any time, and you're not responsible for if that battery degrades over time. Instead, you will just simply be swapping it out all of the time, but of course that means you are subscribing and not actually owning this. Their subscription will cost anywhere from $52 to $83 per month for swaps, and essentially you're renting packs here and then paying per swap as well. Pack swaps do seem to be working over in China, so then the big question is, will Tesla have to compete here? One of Tesla's biggest markets at this point is actually the Chinese market. Their Giga Shanghai factory is their most productive factory, and it serves that market especially a ton. A lot of times when we see a big Tesla sales quarter, a lot of those sales actually came from overseas and from China specifically. So this technology is something that Tesla demoed in the past on the Model S. They even showed it off at an event and talked about how quick this can happen, but they never actually brought it to market since it didn't make sense at scale. It's definitely costly and complex because you're swapping out an entire battery on the underside of the car. Instead, Tesla has gone a different direction, integrating the battery into the structure of the car itself. So it seems they're basically going the opposite direction, more of how we see from Apple computers today. They are less upgradable than PCs, but in practice, many would say that they are more optimized as a result. Tesla is looking to make the sleekest possible product, and then also make one that they can produce at a low cost, and that technology making the battery pack structural actually makes it cheaper long term. If this really takes off from CATL, long term we may see Tesla needing to compete there, especially with some sort of different vehicle in the future. However, it seems that the place Tesla more likely will compete is with charging speeds. Tesla has their supercharger network today, but that currently caps at about 250 kilowatts for the cars that they ship today. And then we see other brands like NIO talking about 600 kilowatt charging speeds on their car. Of course, that comes with a little bit of confusion because 600 kilowatts is the peak charging speed, and what really matters ultimately is the charging curve. But it does seem that this enables pretty ultra-fast charging. So will Tesla have to compete here? Well, we'll likely see them compete with their V4 cabinets that they've already talked about, which enables 500 kilowatt Cybertruck charging speeds. Today, they're already delivering 325 kilowatts on the Cybertruck, but into the future, when those new cabinets are released and put online, we'll see the Cybertruck capable of this faster charging speed. Then we'll of course see what the charging curve overall looks like for that car. But eventually, this kind of tech will probably need to come to all of Tesla's cars, boosting the Model Y's current 250 kilowatt charging peak speed to something like 500 kilowatts to compete with NIO's 600. All of that is more complex and involves infrastructure upgrades and more, but it's always exciting to see this competition coming from China, because Tesla does have to compete, and then the products they make as a result trickle down to the United States, where there actually isn't too much competition in the charging space. But what do you think? Do you think we'll ever see Tesla ship a swappable battery electric vehicle anywhere in the world? Leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts. Next up today, Tesla is in the process of rolling out their annual holiday software update. Within that update, there are many great features that I've already been checking out in the past 2 days, like Sirius XM, but it's also including an Apple Watch app, the Tesla app dashcam viewer, search along route, rear cross traffic alert, precipitation map, set arrival energy at destination, and more. As all of these features are coming out, it's really pointing out just how much better these cars get with time. As such, Tesla posted about all of the features a Model 3 owner from 2021 has received since taking delivery of their car. The list is quite long, but I do want to highlight a few. In 2022, Tesla added alternative navigation routes, traffic along route line, cloud profiles, blind spot camera position adjustments, media logins per profile, dog mode from the app, and more. Within that holiday update for 2022 alone, they added Apple Music support, Zoom calls, My Q Garage support, dog mode live camera view and app, schedule light show, auto fan speed adjustment, and more. In 2023, Tesla added the app's trip planner, added support for larger fonts, added gear chimes, control search, charge on solar, live camera via app, Spotify improvements, warmer display controls, Bluetooth game controller support, and more. Then for that holiday update, they added custom lock sounds, Apple Podcasts, automatic 911, blind spot indicators, and high fidelity park assist, among a few other features. To finish out for 2024, we of course have that holiday update, but we've received quite a lot this year, some of which I'm already very used to, like Audible. On top of that, there was full screen park view, Sentry mode preview clips, adaptive headlights in certain markets, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, parental controls, one-time charging options, reduced fan speed during phone calls, weather forecast, and air quality. It's incredibly impressive to see all the features that have come to these cars over the years. If you buy a Tesla today, you'll get all of these features today, but the best part of this is knowing that 3 years from now, Tesla will likely have a similar list, and your car will include most, if not all, of the features listed. Sometimes features do require the latest hardware, but for the most part, all of this can be delivered via software. It's one of the best parts of owning a Tesla, and after everyone receives this latest holiday update, I'm excited to see what's coming for 2025. Next up today, it has seemed for a while that autonomy is going to play a big part in the future of the transportation industry as a whole. Tesla, for example, has been spending upwards of $10 billion per year on advancing the AI systems that power their full self-driving software, because they feel so strongly that it is the future. FSD is improving a lot with each consecutive update, and is really starting to feel like Tesla is making substantial progress. This software will eventually be employed in their upcoming Cybercab, an autonomous rideshare vehicle that will be able to pick up and drop off customers anywhere without any human operators. Tesla is far from the only company working on this technology, though. They're the only one working on it in their same exact way with vision only. But for example, we have Waymo, a Google subsidiary. They're one of the biggest companies in the self-driving space, and their partnership with Lyft has them operating pilot programs in many cities across the US. GM also owns and operates their own robotaxi service called Cruise, which has had a similarly limited rollout to select markets in the US. Well, as of only a few days ago, GM has actually just discontinued their operation and development of this Cruise service. The move came as a huge shock to Cruise employees, who weren't given any prior indication that the initiative would be winding down. GM has announced that these employees will be brought into the fold and put to work on their internal self-driving software, so the company is at least not exiting the space entirely. Even though Cruise had been operating for a while, they had been struggling on the path to profitability. They had recently gained permission to begin operations in California, and specifically San Francisco, but after one of their vehicles struck a pedestrian, they lost those permits and grounded their whole fleet. They had been working on special robotaxis without a steering wheel or pedals, like the Cybercab, but those projects seemed to have been stalled behind the scenes. From an outsider perspective, it seemed like Cruise was really struggling compared to others in this space, and like they may never catch up. With more promising products from other companies on the horizon, GM may have simply decided to cut their losses on autonomous robotaxis for the time being. The company does seem to be continuing development of autonomy software with a focus even more on consumer vehicles, though. Even with projects that are further along, like those from Waymo and Tesla, it shows that autonomy is a difficult problem and far from being solved. This is a very interesting space to watch, and as the technology advances, it will be very interesting to see what companies hold out and which fold under the pressure. Right now, it seems like GM is pretty much giving up and ceding that market to Waymo, and then hopefully in the future, Tesla. Next up today, the world of EV charging is a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, we have Tesla and their ever-expanding network of superchargers. Those stalls have great fast charging speeds and are extremely reliable. On the other hand, the state of third-party chargers is comparatively questionable. They are much less ubiquitous, and their reliability is not nearly as high. Still, third-party charging providers have been working hard to improve their reputation, and we have some companies poised to expand majorly. EVgo has just finalized a $1.25 billion loan from the US federal government to build and install 7,500 DC fast chargers. This loan will help to bring the company's fast charging network to around 10,000 stalls across the country. For comparison, the company currently operates around 1,000 stations in 40 states. Over the next 5 years, these upcoming stations are estimated to provide more than 1,000 jobs across the country. Currently, the top markets are anticipated to be Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Texas. Those states cover most of the country's largest and fastest growing population centers, where EVs are seeing huge growth. As electric vehicles continue to become more ubiquitous in the coming years, charger expansion is going to become increasingly important. With the opening up of the NACS charge standard, we are seeing more vehicles shift over to this superior standard. EV owners from other brands are already enjoying the ease and availability of Tesla supercharging, and as great as that product is, it's still good to see some increased competition. I'd love to one day be able to pull into any EV charging station and expect the same level of reliability across the board. This is currently one of the main advantages of gas-powered vehicles, but as EV ranges grow and charging stations continue to expand, we will likely see that association shift in favor of electric options. It's really great to see EVgo expand majorly over the next few years, and we'll have to see how well they can handle this growth. Next up today, the state of EV ownership at this point is undoubtedly in a good spot for many owners. While certain models may have their issues and owners may have their specific gripes, you're far more likely to hear owners praise their EVs than regret having bought them. Beyond just anecdotal evidence, we actually have a lot of hard data that supports this claim. A recent study has been published that polled EV owners from some of the largest markets in the world on whether they would purchase another EV as their next car. Based on the responses from 23,000 owners across the US, Brazil, and Europe, they found that 92% would choose a purely electric vehicle as their next car. Only 1% would go to a pure ICE vehicle, and 4% would choose a plug-in hybrid. What is particularly interesting is how this data fits in with the public at large's perception of electric vehicle ownership. Some of the most common reasons that people are hesitant to go electric relate to range and the perceived inconvenience of having to charge. When asked whether EV ownership had any major disadvantages, customers actually responded with a pretty resounding no. And first, by a wide margin, customers frequently selected there are no disadvantages with having an EV. That isn't to say that EVs don't have their share of problems, but that they didn't rise high enough in their mind to really make that big of an impact. The next few top responses, however, all had to do with the charging experience, whether it be with charger coverage, charge time, or reliability. Those can be problems for sure, especially when you're not using a Tesla supercharger. Those problems, however, are far from universal. In further polling, they found that 72% of respondents said that they charged their cars at home, while 13% used the public charging network, and 7% used public parking chargers. While public fast charging infrastructure is extremely important, most people are able to use their EVs locally and rely on convenient home charging for most of their driving needs, at least for owners so far. That isn't to say that charger reliability is an unimportant issue, just that in practice it doesn't come up as much as many people think. The truth of the matter is that most people truly love driving an EV, and once they start, they don't want to go back. Two of the top automakers for customer satisfaction are Rivian and Tesla, two companies that exclusively make electric vehicles. I personally could never imagine myself going back to an ICE vehicle, and the statistics are showing that this is the case for most people. Last up today, some updates from other automakers. Tesla and BYD have been in a very tight race for a while now to clinch the title of world's biggest EV maker. While Tesla has advantages in terms of technology and quality, BYD offers a lot of really solid options at very compelling prices. The rivalry runs very deep at this point, and each company is constantly looking for ways to get ahead in this very competitive market. Just recently, someone spotted a Cybertruck at a BYD facility over in China, presumably getting reverse engineered. While the Cybertruck is a very controversial vehicle, it's undeniable that it is also very technologically advanced. Tesla made a lot of big swings for the fences with this truck, and that's how we see its amazing steer-by-wire system, 800-volt architecture, 500 kilowatt peak charging speeds, and a number of other great features. In a lot of ways, this car is really ahead of the curve, and it makes sense that other car companies would want to take it apart to see exactly what Tesla made here. This is a pretty common thing to do in the auto industry, and it's not surprising to see that BYD would acquire one of these trucks to study. I'm sure that Tesla has probably done the same with some of BYD's vehicles, especially over in China. It's an important part of having robust competition in the EV market, as it allows for companies to try things in different ways and then examine broadly what is working and what isn't. Since Tesla was the first to bring many of these features to market, it's not surprising to see other automakers looking for inspiration here. Early on, we saw other companies like Ford purchasing Cybertrucks as well. There are a lot of rumors right now that the Cybertruck may be coming soon to China, but those aren't confirmed yet, so BYD had to buy this truck in the US and ship it overseas. It's always very positive to see tests like this being performed, as it means that the entire auto industry is moving forward together, and that every brand is going to improve their offerings in time. The hope here, though, is that they're not simply going to try and copy the Cybertruck. Over at NIO, they recently launched the ET9 Limited Edition, a premium full-size luxury sedan with a price tag of $112,000. This also has a limited run of 999 initial units. Those units sold out extremely quickly, showing that even in these luxury vehicles, there is a lot of demand. The ET9 is equipped with a dual-motor all-wheel drive system, producing an impressive 697 horsepower for high-performance driving. It is powered by a 120 kilowatt-hour battery that provides an estimated range of up to 650 kilometers on the CLTC cycle. Converted to EPA, that's about 283 miles. The inclusion of a 900-volt electric architecture allows for ultra-fast charging, significantly reducing downtime during recharges. This luxury sedan also incorporates advanced autonomous driving features, backed by a sophisticated suite of sensors and software designed for a seamless driver experience. The ET9's interior also reflects a focus on premium materials and cutting-edge technology, ensuring a high level of comfort and functionality for drivers and passengers alike. Priced at $112,000, the ET9 Limited Edition is definitely targeted at the high-end EV market. As of right now, Tesla doesn't really have a competing vehicle in these markets, so it'll be interesting to see what the future may hold there. They've talked about a 6-seater Model Y with a longer wheelbase in China, but that wouldn't really compete with something like this. Long term, maybe we'll see Tesla introduce something, but it feels like they really are focused on what the majority is buying. That's all the latest Tesla news for today, so in the meantime, if you want to see the latest timelines for Model Y Juniper production and more, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.